We are now recording and everyone is...
To the Northern Beaches Local Planning Panel. My name's David Crofts and I'm the chair of the panel. I'll introduce the other panel members shortly, but given I would imagine a few of you have not attended a panel meeting previously, I'll just provide a quick introduction about the panels and what our role is and that sort of thing, so it helps provide a bit of context for you all. Basically, back in 2018, the state government made local planning panels mandatory for all Sydney councils, as well as Wollongong City Council. The aim behind the panels is to provide an increasing level of accountability and to ensure independent oversight leads to better planning outcomes, particularly for certain developments that are controversial or sensitive or involving a real or potential conflict of interest for council. So what we do is we provide independent and open forum for interested people and groups to hear and make submissions about development proposals, and that's the meeting we're here at the moment. We then consider and determine development applications, application modifications, reviews of applications that have been directed to us according to certain criteria that are set by the Minister for Planning and their direction, his direction rather in this case. And also we have a role in providing recommendations to council on planning proposals and any other development matter that may be referred to the panel. Nick Sharp, would you mind turning your microphone off, please?
Oh, sorry, working on it.
Thank you. There are certain statutory rules that govern the operation of the panel through a code of conduct and operational procedures. And if you're interested in those, you can find them on council or the state government website. Each panel meeting has 4 members, a chairperson who's an independent expert. That's, in this case, it's myself, David Crofts, and a community member, and for this meeting, Phil Young is present as a community member. He's just waved to everybody. And also we have 2 other independent expert members, Benjamin Hendricks and also Mary Lynn Taylor, who are joining this meeting in that role. Phil is a community member, he's a representative of the local community, but he's not an expert in a particular field, and he's not there to represent a particular community group or interest in the community. It's a broader scope of interest that he represents. The process we follow is that a development application is lodged, as would normally be the case with council. The council officers go through a development assessment process as usual. They then provide a report to us with a recommendation. We then proceed to independently determine that application. How we do that is we consider that report. We also consider any submissions that people like yourselves have lodged with council in response to the application. We also have access to all the planning reports and the like, which have been lodged with the application. And we do an independent site inspection. Generally, we don't enter private property. We just do that from the public realm. And we're unable to do that. We do that electronically by using various portals and so on that provide us that information. Following this meeting, the public meeting, we will then go into a closed session and then we determine the application. And determination means we determine whether or not the application should be approved, what conditions it might be approved with, whether the application should be refused, or whether we want to defer that application for additional information and it to come back to the panel. So that's a closed session. Once we've made those determinations, that information is forwarded to council, and then council then makes that information public and that's normally several days after we've done the determination because there's some procedural matters that council works through. This public meeting is being video and audio recorded, so by participating, you are indicating your willingness for that to occur. And the recordings are both live streamed and available on Council's website following the meeting itself. Those of you who are making a presentation, a couple of things I'd like you to do. Firstly, to be as concise as possible. Secondly, we have had the opportunity to read your submissions, so there's no need to read the submission again. My advice to you is you focus on what you think are the key points that need to be drawn to our attention. If you're, when you're speaking, if you can keep your presentation to 3 minutes or less. In addition to that, this is an opportunity for you to make your views known to the panel and to make us better informed. It's not an opportunity for a debate with the applicant. So I will not be allowing any to and fro discussion between yourselves and the applicant. It's purely an information opportunity for us. And at the end of the community presentations, we'll ask the applicant to respond. And then following that, I will open it up to the panel members to ask any questions of those who have made presentations, if you're willing, and also the applicant. And then once we've completed that, we'll then move on to the next item. So I hope that gives you a little bit of a snapshot as to who we are and how we operate and the process that sits behind all of that. So I'd now like to formally start the meeting. We have a fairly big agenda today. We have roughly 6 development applications we need to consider and another matter. To start the meeting, I would firstly like to welcome you and also acknowledge country. As a sign of respect, the Northern Beaches Planning Panel acknowledges the traditional custodians on the land in which we gather and pays respect to elders past and present and emerging. I have received no apologies to the meeting. Just checking with you, Natalie, you haven't received any additional apologies? No. Thank you. Also, declarations of interest. Prior to the meeting, each member of the panel has lodged a written declaration of interest with the council, and I have reviewed those declarations of interest. So those declarations of interest basically say whether or not the panel member believes they have a real or perceived conflict of interest in relation to any item that may be coming to the panel. And I do encourage panel members to indicate those no matter how minor. And if it's a very minor matter that doesn't cause any, is likely to prejudice their decision making, then it's on the record, but they still participate in the meeting. If they do have a conflict of interest that's of sufficient significance, then they do not participate in the meeting, in the discussion at all, or the determination, and they will leave the meeting for the duration of that item and come back again. The minutes of the previous meeting, which is the 11th of December, have been published on Council's website. They were adopted by the chairperson and have been posted, as I mentioned. So we're just noting those. And that brings us to the first public meeting item for today, which is item 4.1 in the agenda papers, and that's DA 2024/0366, which is 27 Wayne Street, Freshwater, the demolition works and construction of a multi-dwelling housing. That's coming to the panel because we have 10 or more unique submissions by way of objection. I have a range of people that have registered to present. So I will go through those people in order that they're on my sheet. That's not necessarily alphabetical orders, but there's we haven't done that to indicate favouritism or otherwise. It's just the way that they've happened to come into council. The first person I have listed is Chris Young from CMY Planning Services, who's been engaged by Hamish Baxter, as I understand, and Hamish Baxter is also registered to speak. I might ask Chris and Hamish just to confirm whether you both wish to speak or whether or not one of you wishes to speak. So just checking of both online. I've got a very large number of people on my screen, so.
Hi, David. We're both here and would both like to speak.
Yes, and you'd both like to present?
Yes,
I'm
please.
here as well, and yes, that was my understanding, Mr. Chair.
Yep, that's fine. Yes, if that's what you wish to do. Sometimes that's not the case, so I thought I'd double check. Which of you would like to go first?
Probably best if you did, Hamish, and then I can sort of make sure I don't duplicate.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Hamish, we're in
Happy
your
to do so.
hands. So yes, please commence.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, my name is Hamish. I speak for myself as well as for neighbours in my community who are unable to attend today. I own and live in a unit immediately beside this proposed development. And like so many others, I'm strongly opposed to such a blatant overdevelopment of this site, especially one that is so disrespectful towards local residents' right to amenity, privacy, sunlight and safety. The previous DA on this land was rejected for reasons including height, bulk, landscaping and boundary breaches, none of which have been adequately addressed in this latest DA, and many of which appear to be breached to a greater extent. The land this DA is proposed on is 557 square meters. So why is a 4-townhouse, 5-level building
guys, oh yeah, no, the speaker doesn't work on the
so many
computer, even though
controls
the
even
mic's
being
there.
considered?
Oh, so I've had to call in.
Sorry,
Sorry, can you just stop for a moment, please, Hamish? There's a little bit of background noise there. I'm not quite sure where it is, but it's making it difficult to hear you.
This is a phone in. Somebody's phoned into the meeting and we can hear you.
Okay, seems to be quiet now, Hamish. Would you mind starting again? I'm sorry about that.
Absolutely. Would you like me to start from the beginning, or where did you?
We heard the first couple of sentences. So you were talking about how it didn't comply in a number of ways.
Sure. So I guess I'll jump right back in.
Sure.
I feel that this overdevelopment, it's incredibly disrespectful to our local residents' right to amenity, privacy, sunlight, and safety. The previous DA on this land, it was rejected for reasons including height, bulk, landscaping, and boundary breaches, none of which appear to be adequately addressed in this latest DA, and many of which appear to be breached to a greater extent. The land on this DA that's proposed on, it's a tiny 557 square meters. So why is a 4-townhouse, 5-level building that continues to breach so many controls even being considered? This remnant land's R3 zoning is a historical quirk at best, and allowing a building to even meet, let alone exceed these R3 limitations makes no sense in the context of this small site. So this proposed building, it's nearly 2 meters taller than the 11-meter limit when you view it from the land's relocated front entrance. This excessive height unnecessarily blocks many of our sweeping district and sunset views, as well as our access to adequate sunlight in our building. Furthermore, it willfully ignores the tenacity planning principles in respect to view sharing. The newly proposed rooftop terraces and parapets further increase this excessive height and bulk. It inflicts both noise and a direct line of sight into our bathrooms, bedrooms, and living areas. It's a gross breach of our privacy and our right to amenity. This is only further exaggerated by the eastern boundary setback breach and the now enormous windows looking directly into our entire units. Given the proposed units in this DA already have an outdoor patio and separate balcony, these rooftop terraces are both excessive and intrusive. This development proposes to excavate right up to our property line for the basement, rather than to the 2-meter limit, all for the sake of only increasing building size and development profit. While this puts our retaining wall, our foundation, and the driveway of our 60s brick building at incredible risk. And I ask, is this not evidence of too big a building on too small a site? Furthermore, the proposed driveway entrance is dangerous. There is good reason that that section of road is currently a yellow line with a no parking, no stopping zone. It's a blind hairpin corner that regularly experiences near misses between cars that cannot see each other on that corner. And finally, this latest DA would likely render much of the only sidewalk around this dangerous corner unusable during the multi-year construction, leaving no safe place for the considerable number of families and children that rely on it for their safety. If council insists on overdeveloping such a site against recommendations from external town planners and local residents, then at the very least, I believe these plans should be amended to significantly reduce the building's height, its size and footprint, remove the rooftop terraces and parapets, reduce the eastern facing window size, and ensure that the dangerous driveway and the sidewalk loss is remediated. I believe these changes would yield hugely positive benefits to our community while minimally impacting the overall development itself. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much, Hamish. Christian,
Pardon me. Yeah, sorry. Thank you very much, panel, Mr. Chair, and all the panel members for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I represent Mr. Baxter of Unit 11/25 Wayne Street, which is the top floor of the property immediately to the east. Now, Mr. Baxter has actually covered many of the things that I wanted to cover, but I did want to probably just focus then on quite a small number of specific issues. Hamish spoke of the roof terraces. We feel that they are unnecessary in the sense that the development's attempting to replicate a residential flat style of development where such a development might have a single communal open space at the roof. This development actually provides a separate roof terrace for each unit. So we're not sure how that will actually work from a workability point of view. And it's possible that the terrace of one unit will be occupied and in use at the same time as the terrace of another unit. And there doesn't appear to be any separation screening between each terrace. So we couldn't see how that would be provided on the amended plans or addressed in the assessment report. We feel that the development in terms of those roof terraces, the roof terraces are actually quite unnecessary. The development does provide adequate private open space at ground level. And as I said, it's a common feature in a residential apartment development where there's little or no common open space at the ground level. So we just feel that the roof terrace is unworkable and unnecessary, and the impacts that result from the parapet to the sides will cause an additional height impact. That leads into another thing that Hamish spoke of, and that is the district views that are available towards the west from his balcony and his living rooms. Though it's been addressed in the assessment report, we feel it does underscore a little bit the value of those views from Mr. Baxter's property. They're said to be sort of negligible or not particularly valuable in terms of not having any iconic items in view. However, given that it's a broad district view, it's still highly prized by my client, and we just feel that further amendments can be undertaken to the design of the development that would result in minimal impact in terms of the value to the occupants of the development, but it would bring about a huge impact in terms of reduction of impact to Mr. Baxter's property and the other unit to which he adjoins. Mr. Baxter has also spoken about the privacy impacts, the enlarged windows that were contained in the amended plans. That's a strong concern because some of those windows contain key living rooms and they face directly towards the Mr. Baxter's property. To a lesser extent, also just finally to wrap up the photovoltaic solar panels, all we'd ask there is for them to be angled so they don't cause glare impacts. We note that there's a condition of consent. However, perhaps a little bit more information or more detail can be required so that they don't cause a glare impact. And that was I'm just picking through the notes that I'd made, and I think that covers everything in greater detail over and above what Hamish said. So I'd just like to thank the panel for the opportunity to present and to acknowledge the effort that's gone into the officer preparing the report.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris, and thank you both for also staying within the time limit. So the next speaker I've got is John Rasicki. I hope I pronounced that correctly. John, are you online, please? Natalie, are you?
I do see him
Oh,
here.
I found it. Yes, he's on the screen.
Yeah.
Yes. John, your microphone is off. If you're able to put it on, please. Yes. So, John, are you able to hear me, please? I can't hear you.
I do have his mobile number if you do want me to phone him in.
If you wouldn't mind, if you could do
Sure.
that quickly.
Very good. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can, John, but I think you'll need to turn the speakers off on your computer because we're getting an echo.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, but I'm getting echoing. So turn the microphone.
Okay.
Try it now. Can you just say a few words, please?
Right. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Thank you very much. So,
Okay.
yeah, we're in your hands to make a presentation, please, John.
Okay. Thank you. Right. I put in a few hours yesterday composing some thoughts to present to the panel. I considered what was going on in the thoughts of the developers, saying to themselves, we have got this in the bag. And the panel saying to themselves, well, we have to listen to the speakers, but we have little we can do. The recommendation is for approval with certain conditions. I like the use of the word contentious somewhere in the report. There are differing opinions on this DA. I believe this particular site is different from other single building sites. The panel members have visited it and know this. Regulations are written with a broad brush, yet must be flexible. This site is special, isolated, unique, and worthy of special consideration. This site will affect perceived population density, traffic, parking, movement of peoples and vehicles of all sorts. There is no overwhelming positive benefit to this development. The immediate financial gain for the developer should not be factored into your decision making. There is no social benefit to this development, except perhaps for 4 families who may live there. But does that really tip the scales against the hundreds of current residents of Wayne Street? There are no environmental benefits. There will be a loss of habitat for wildlife. There is no economic benefit for the local community. The businesses on Wayne Street will be very inconvenienced. Residential values may fall due to perceived congestion and overcrowded paths and streets and simply misunderstanding the area. Where we live shouldn't be this chaotic. The panel needs to be bold, resolute, and brave. This development may have been recommended for approval because it meets regulations if certain allowances are made. I ask why the allowances should be made or variations be permitted. If the regulations were enforced to the strict letter, would this be recommended for approval? When examined from a more general overview of the freshwater environment, this development is not essential. If viewed not as a single development in a locale where nothing else is being built, but as a proposal for a development amongst many others, it can be seen to be an unnecessary overdevelopment on Wayne Street and Freshwater. There are other sites in Freshwater and the northern beaches more amenable to such large buildings. This may be a tough decision, but denying this DA is the right thing to do. If you make the decision to approve this DA, so be it. But I and all Wayne Street residents will bear the sad consequences, not you. Let me end with what some might think is a joke. The most interesting use of the site and a wonderful positive outcome would be for this small piece of earth to become a community public park. If the panel gives the freshwater community time, we can make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. The next speaker I have is Edwina Anand. You see you're online, Edwina. Yes, and your microphone is turned off still. Just hold on a moment. Natalie, I think you might have muted Edwina earlier. That might be the reason why it's off. Just wait a moment, Edwina.
Yes, maybe we could speak to the next speaker, Anne, and come back, and we will need to ask that Edwina rejoins because I don't have the ability to unmute, and maybe that's the issue that she's having also.
Okay, so Edwina, we can't hear you. She's just, they need to log out and log back in again. So if we could just move to the next speaker, which is Anne Sharp. Anne, are you on the line, please?
Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Right. Okay. Yes, I also strongly object to this development. The assessment report does not provide an overview of the constraints relating to this site and its context within the street. The constraints provide a strategic framework in which to assess the proposal. The site has a broad interface with Wayne Street, including the footpath that extends around the perimeter of the site, and non-compliance with setbacks and landscaped open space controls will have negative impacts, including within the public domain. Issues include the excavation. The excavation would extend across the major portion of the site, leaving only a small residual area of natural landform and soil profile. The excavation is excessive for this small site. It will gouge a huge hole out of the hillside and embankment. The excavation will also affect adjoining land, particularly without the setback, and including drainage patterns and soil stability. And the impacts associated with excavation would not be easily reversed. The landscape open space the proposal does not satisfy the requirements and objective for the 50% landscaped open space requirement, and doesn't include sufficient soil depth to support trees of a reasonable height to screen the building. The building height also, when viewed from the south, would appear as 4 stories, which could exceed the building height of 11 metres. Particular concerns, the boundary setbacks also non-compliant, and they would have negative, as a consequence, there would be negative impacts on the surrounding area. 2 key issues, though, of concern, apart from the excavation, the excavation is a concern, but the access driveway. It's not the safest location. It's not the safest option, with access being preferred from the northeast corner. And also there's concern about if you were going at speed limit or below the speed limit at 40 kph, that would be considered dangerous around the bend. I understand that council as a roads authority will always consider the public interest when assessing any application, but council should have the discretion to refuse a proposed driveway access on the grounds of public safety. In this instance, public safety should take priority and not be compromised as a concession to allow increased development within this constrained site. There doesn't appear to be a requirement under the Roads Act for council to approve a less safe alternative driveway access. Currently, there is no driveway access on the downhill slope from the subject site or the adjoining property to the east, and driveway access for both properties should remain on the northern side, which is a safer location. If there is an accident resulting from someone rounding the bend at or below the speed limit, could council be liable, having approved the driveway access in the first place? Regarding safer neighbourhoods, council is committed to making our neighbourhoods safer for pedestrians and road users. This development achieves the opposite. The proposed driveway would also remove an extensive area, 10 metres wide, section of the hillside that adjoins the footpath along the southern side. This supports trees and vegetation which currently provide landscaped amenity within the street. In conclusion, the proposal is an overdevelopment that is not compliant with existing development controls. It will also have irreversible and unacceptable impacts on public safety and amenity. I urge the panel to refuse the development. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anne. Edwina and Anne, are you back online?
Can you hear me now?
I can. Very good. Yes.
Sorry.
So we're in your hands now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can't hear you guys very well at all.
Right. Well, it sounds like we've swapped roles then. So you can't hear me at all?
Anyway, it doesn't matter. I can hear you now.
Oh, perfect. Okay, that's great. Thank you.
I just got to have my say anyway. So
yes.
Thank you. So hello everyone, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my neighbours in the block at 25, which again, where Hamish lives and is on the eastern side. And my unit especially is going to be really affected because I'm going to lose. The only gap between me is a driveway, and I'm on the bottom level. but I'm going to focus on two issues today. However, I believe 25 at 27 Wayne Street should never have been zoned for medium density in the first place due to a large number of dangerous constraints, and we've talked about those. But firstly, the concerns raised, such as solar access, privacy, loss of outlook, etc., by the 6 units at 25 who face 27, and who, by the way, have not been presented in any photos provided by the developer to you guys, and who were provided with more inaccurate solar diagrams, have been totally overlooked by the developer and their latest assessment report by council. I'm just wondering how and why this has happened again, even though we were acknowledged by the previous panel, who wrote on page 30 of their report that our concerns were, quote, seen as not unreasonable. I'm now left asking why we've been disregarded again. The impact of this bill will be negatively life-changing if allowed to proceed for all of us. Why have these issues still not been considered or taken seriously? Hopefully this meeting today will highlight the need for everyone involved to address this thoroughly, taking into account the huge impact this bill would have on the residents at 25 and the whole street. Secondly, the latest development proposal still breaches a number of regulations from the council's building form controls, which we've mentioned. Two major ones concerning us at 25 are the E10 landslip risk non-compliant and D4 development of sloping land non-compliant. The geotechnical report accompanying the DA suggests a low risk of impact, yet there is no comprehensive risk management plan addressing potential problems that could arise during the excavation process, no detailed measures to mitigate the risk of damage to 25 Wayne Street, no engineer's report to assess and determine consequences short and long term, and no report to address the effects of digging directly along our boundary. Therefore, I'd like to ask you all, what guarantee is there for us that our foundations won't be compromised in any way as a result of the large amount of digging required to take place? The site-specific concerns are also highly relevant to this issue, as the land designated for development is situated on a corner block, the lower angle of a hill, with a sandstone base where the water runoff is of significant concern. This geographical feature exacerbates the risk of ground instability, which could have detrimental effects on our property. Effective risk mitigation strategies and comprehensive analysis of the consequences of removing parent rock have not been considered. Where is the independent, detailed risk assessment that should have been conducted? A neighbour a few houses up has just had natural sandstone retaining wall behind them nearly collapse on top of them due to excessive rainfall and being built. They have a house built behind them. It's cost them thousands to get that stabilised. So it does happen on our street. The vulnerabilities of 25 Wayne Street, the specific site conditions and the fact it was built in the 1960s when rules around property foundations were minimal, has not even been considered. Again, highly concerning. Especially
Edwina, you're a little bit beyond your time, so if you could sort of move toward winding up, that would be very helpful.
Two more paragraphs, so really quick.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Sorry, can I finish?
Yes, certainly.
Especially the previous evacuation and development activities on the eastern side of 25 Wayne Street during the building of smaller oversized developments at 23, next door to us on the other side anyway, have already resulted in significant structural damage to our property. You can see it on the driveway, presenting in large cracks, a collapsed fence, severe water leakage into our storerooms, as well as cracks in the veranda of the unit that sits on ground level, and a boundary wall that has shifted and cracked, all damaged as a direct result of ground movement. Earth and underlying parent rock was removed directly along these boundaries in the past. The proposed development therefore runs a risk of undermining the structural integrity and viability of our property. So I hope you will really consider all those things. Sorry for going slightly over, but I didn't have time to colour. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that concludes the objectives that are registered to speak. Is that correct, Natalie?
Yes, thank you, David.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll now move on to the applicant, and I have 3 representatives of them that are registered. There's Ben Dalglish, Greg Boston, and Elaine Asum. I hope I pronounced that correctly. So I might ask perhaps Ben, are you all speaking, or is one of you taking the primary role and the others supporting? How would you like to do this?
I think I'm happy for Greg to take the primary role of speaking and doing the
Yes.
presentation, and then I'm just here to answer any questions as needed from the panel.
Okay, so thank you very much. So, Greg, you're the ringmaster of responses, so I'll let you go ahead if you can respond to some of the queries from the presenters, and then I'll move on to the panel to ask any questions. But in the meanwhile, it's up to you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Mr. Chair. We've also got the project architect here to answer any architectural related questions that the panel members might have. Look, the site is zoned R3. It's not an anomaly. It's been zoned that way since this precinct was rezoned under previous planning regimes. It's an isolated site. It's got a dwelling house on it. Certainly, currently, the density and land use on the site could be said to be inconsistent with the zone objectives, and certainly the density that council anticipates under its housing strategy on the site. There can be no comparison, as you know, in relation to this application and the previously refused application, which was for a 4-storey residential flat building, non-compliant with building height, and certainly in a different form than what is proposed. Before you use an application for a townhouse development incorporating 4 townhouses compliant with building height, the final design has been refined through feedback not only by council's technical staff, but also the Design and Sustainability Advisory Panel, who certainly provided proactive advice through the assessment process, with all of that advice ultimately adopted in relation to the plans before you. We note that all of council's technical experts relating to traffic, geotechnical, landscape, biodiversity have all signed off on the proposal and have incorporated draft conditions in the draft consent before you. In relation to some of the specific issues raised, this isn't a 4-storey non-compliant building form. It's a 3-storey townhouse form, fully compliant with the building height. The variations that have been identified within the assessment report have been fully justified, having regards to the isolated nature of the site. There is no ability to consolidate with adjoining properties, with the overall built form and setback relationship to boundaries either entirely consistent with what's established by other medium density development in Wayne Street, or in most cases substantially less in terms of overall building height and streetscape impacts. In relation to the concerns raised on privacy, the east-facing first and second floor windows are associated with bedrooms. When you look at the plans, you'll note that all that glazing is either hopper style and nominated as frosted glazing, with only some very thin translucent glazing, clear glazing in certain aspects of those bedrooms. The principal living areas are at ground floor level. There's no privacy impact associated with those. In relation to the roof terraces, these terraces were certainly an element that was supported by DSAP. There's been some refinement in relation to the design and location of those relative to the neighbours, such that in relation to townhouses 1 through 3, there's more than 10-metre separation distance between those terraces and the apartments in 25 Wayne Street. And that's evidenced on the site plan, which is DA004, which you'll no doubt have in your bundle. There is a condition 15 in the draft consent requiring a planter box. along the eastern edge of the terrace to dwelling 4. And we would ask that the panel just change the wording slightly just to make sure that it's abundantly clear that that condition relates to the roof terrace and not the ground floor terrace below that. There are also 2 conditions specifically aimed at, or there's actually 3 conditions specifically aimed at those roof terrace elements. They're contained at, I think it's condition 66, which restricts noise generally. 68 restricts the hours of use. And there's also conditions there restricting or preventing any permanent shade structures from being provided. So these are secondary spaces, primarily aimed at just enhancing amenity to those individual apartments. And we believe that not only the design, but also the suite of conditions that Council has imposed will ensure a reasonable and contextually appropriate privacy outcome having regard to the R3 zoning of the land. The concerns in relation to excavation impacts, Council's imposed both pre and post-construction dilapidation reporting requirements, specifically identifying 25 Wayne Street. And to that extent, the adjoining property owners can get some comfort from that. It's a standard procedure for Council to impose such conditions to ensure that any excavation impacts that arise during construction are appropriately ameliorated. As I said, the application has gone through a rigorous assessment process. Consistent with Council's findings, we say that the proposal is in fact well designed, contextually appropriate, provides good amenity to future occupants, whilst also maintaining appropriate, contextually appropriate amenity to the adjoining properties. Not only in terms of privacy and solar access, but also the maintenance of outlook, noting that the view impact identified by the residents has been comprehensively dealt with in the assessment report. Apart from that, really here to answer any questions that the panel members might raise. As I said, also got the client and the architect here to answer any questions.
Thanks very much, Greg. So panel members, it's now open to you for any questions or points of clarification of the objectors or alternatively the applicant. Anyone got any questions or queries?
I did have one question for Chris Young. Are you there, Chris?
Yes, I am. Sorry, it took me a while to find the mute button. Sorry,
that's okay. You mentioned that changes that would improve the situation for your client, but you didn't actually outline what those changes could be. So I was just wondering what they were.
Yeah, sure, certainly. I was focusing on the roof terrace. As I said, the roof terrace would appear to be an unnecessary element replicating a residential flat development where you need a communal open space. But the changes that specifically would be, deletion of the roof terrace and its associated parapet, which would reduce the height of the building by a metre. And that would result in not having a roof terrace would result in minimal reduction in amenity and quality of life for the residents of the development, but it would make a big difference to the immediate neighbours at number 25. So that's what I was referring to there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other queries from panel members? None. No. Marilyn, no. I had some, and they principally they're directed toward the applicant's representatives. The southeastern unit that's there, it's the one that's closest to the side boundary, and I was interested, is there any opportunities for increasing landscaping along the side boundary there? I note that the landscaping plan, I think, has a crepe myrtle that's being proposed, which I personally wouldn't regard as screening vegetation. Is there any scope for the widening of the landscape strip along the boundary of that unit on the terrace level a ground floor terrace, that is, with the side boundary, and also there's an area which I think is actually the part of the driveway that's further to the south of that, where there's opportunity for some additional landscaping there that might soften the building relative to the neighbours, please.
Elaine, do you want to respond to that, or would you like me to?
Greg, I think if you want to just respond, then we can weigh in.
Yeah, sure. Look, Mr. Chair, look, we'd certainly be open to providing either additional or different landscape treatments in that particular location of the site. And I would have thought that could be appropriately dealt with by way of condition.
So is there practical scope while we have you here for that to occur, to increase the width of that? And I note that section of what I believe to be the driveway there has no landscaping at all immediately to the south of the terrace of the building.
Yeah,
well, I think we'd have to look at it with the traffic engineer's input to ensure that we can reduce the width of the driveway with a lay area for vehicles to pass each other. Again, I think it just would require further exploration with the technical input of a traffic engineer, specifically with regards to the driveway setback from the boundary. And
within the terrace on the ground floor itself?
So the terrace at the moment, there's a consistent 3 metre setback zone along that width.
Yes, but I'm referring to the terrace area that's there where there's not a consistent 3 metre strip of landscaping. In the south, you have a look at the southeastern corner where it actually goes to what looks like very close to zero in that corner, the width of the landscaping strip.
Yeah, so in that area, again, I think there's, from our reading of the drawings, is that there's a 3 metre setback consistently applied across that whole form, and then there's the courtyards within those spaces.
That's what I'm referring to. The courtyard within that space.
Yeah.
That the landscape strip there is tapering as you go further south. What I'm asking is the potential to widen that landscaping strip, particularly at its southernmost extremity.
To 3 metres?
I don't have a view about that, but certainly wider than what it is. For example, the area that's, you've got on the landscaping plan, it shows a plant labelled LZC, which is a crepe myrtle, and four plants labelled DRE. I'm not sure what they are, but I suspect there's some sort of ground cover, small shrub type plant. That's the area I'm talking specifically about.
So, Mr. Chairperson, is this in regards to introducing, I suppose, landscape elements within that area, or specifically with regards to increasing the setbacks?
Not increasing the setback of the building. I'm referring specifically to increasing the width of the landscaping strip that runs along the side boundary. On the plans, you can see what I think are sandstone pavers, are they? In the southernmost part of that courtyard?
Yeah, they're pavers.
Yeah, so is there any practical reason why the landscaping strip, basically adjacent to the pavers, can't be widened to the width it is, at least to the width it is when you go to the north of that terrace, the northern extremity of the terrace?
Yeah, I think those pavers could be flipped to the northern edge of that courtyard, and which would leave the southern edge available for landscaping and a widening of that landscape strip at its southern end. So yeah, I believe that's possible, and we obviously don't have the expertise here in terms of giving you alternate plant species, but certainly the panel has access to council's experts in that regard.
Okay, and then my second question related to that particular unit and the rooftop terrace. can you just describe to me the screening between that rooftop terrace and the adjacent property at number 25? Because the others appear to have a masonry wall or something like that that acts as a screen. That one doesn't.
Yeah, so I would imagine as part of the design development that a masonry wall would continue at the 1 metre height. But as Greg mentioned, is one of the conditions of consent. Condition 15 lays out that a planter box should be incorporated as part of the final design, as per council's kind of recommend draft conditions of consent. So we would imagine on that eastern edge it would be a masonry planter box that would be incorporated in line with the stairs, the turn of the stairs. So you'd have that buffer between us and the neighbour.
Okay, all right. No, thank you for that clarification on both those issues. Any other questions from panel members at all? No? No? Okay, I might leave that item now. Can I thank you all for participating? We'll certainly take into account all the matters that were raised by the objectors in our determination, which will be following the public meeting. And as I mentioned earlier, the outcomes of our meeting, the determinations will be available publicly in a few days' time once council's finished going through the necessary processes it needs to go through. Once again, thank you very much. And I'll now move on to the next item, which is item 4.2 on the agenda. Just wait till the relevant people have logged out and the others for the next item have logged in. They need to. I'm now starting item 4.2 of the agenda, which is DA 2024/1249 East Esplanade Manly, and that's the conversion of a former retail space into a pub and an artisan food and drink industry, which I think includes a microbrewery and that sort of thing. I have one objector listed, and that's Mark Ewington. Mark, are you on the line? Oh, yes, I can see you. Right. Okay, Mark. I think you're online earlier where I described who the panel is and what we do.
Yes,
and yeah. Oh, that's good. So you got that context. So we're now in your hands for your presentation, please. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I raised two issues re this development. The first issue is the capacity of this area to continually absorb more drinkers. 700 patrons is a lot to add to the current felon site, the Four Pines Brewery, public drinking at East Esplanade Reserve, and the other licensed premises within a few hundred metres of each other. There's already a lot of drinking occurring in a small area. A number of people have raised the problem of antisocial behaviour, which currently exists but is not being addressed. I note that the antisocial issues have been cleared by the police. Unfortunately, the police don't have the resources to be across this issue. They do not regularly patrol East Esplanade. Police management is based in Needwye, not Manly. I've asked police to at least do a walk through the East Esplanade area on Hot Friday and Saturday nights, but I have not seen this happen. Not to overstate the case, but public urination regularly occurs. On Australia Day between 6:10 p.m. and 7:45, our security cameras captured 15 instances of urination on our driveway, puddles of urine. I can provide photos if you wish. This only stopped when the owners patrolled the area for the next 2 hours and would-be urinators then needed to find other driveways, doorways, etc. Council won't help. The police are not adequately resourced and are not policing this issue. A big new establishment will make the situation worse. The second issue I raised is the location of the public toilets. They are currently poorly located in a basement, but moving them towards the centre of the wharf will make it even harder for East Esplanade drinkers to access toilets. The toilets need to be located at the southeast corner of the wharf complex, adjacent to where bikes are now stored. Without access to toilets, adding substantial drinking capacity will lead to an ever-increasing public urination problem. As I've communicated to council, this problem will just not go away. Something needs to be done to prevent this instances of public urination growing. So they were my objections.
Okay, thank you very much. That's the only objector I've got registered. Is that the case, Natalie?
Yes, that's correct.
Great, thank you very much. On behalf of the applicant, I have one person who's registered who may or may not have support people, and that's Jonathan Archibald. Jonathan, I can see you're online and your microphone's off. So now in your hands. Everyone else who's not actually on and presenting at the moment, if you're able to turn your microphones off, that would be appreciated. Just
Mr. Chair.
Sorry,
noise.
Tim Moore. Jonathan registered Tim Moore. My apologies.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so you're with Jonathan. Okay, no problems. So so Jonathan and Tim, since you're both representing the applicant or part of that team, Jonathan's got his microphone off again now, I noticed.
Jonathan won't be speaking.
Oh, okay. You're the only presenter.
Yeah,
okay, I'm with you now. Right. Sorry about that. Okay, we're in your hands then, Tim.
Thank you very much, panel, for giving us the opportunity to speak to you today. I do have some of the team from Howard Smith Wharves, the owners of Manly Wharf, and the operators of this proposed venue who can speak if you have any questions about the detailed aspects of their operation. I just wanted to summarise a couple of quick things, really. Firstly, to give you a sense of the new owners of this wharf and their commitment to improving the safety and the amenity of Manly Wharf. Howard Smith Wharves purchased Manly Wharf just under 12 months ago, and in that time have done a lot to address how open and inclusive the wharf is to a wider cross-section of the local community and from right across Sydney indeed, to make it more family-friendly and welcoming. They've worked closely with the police. They've installed up to 130 CCTV cameras to take a better watch on the wharf. They've employed and deployed 24-hour, 7-day-a-week security across the wharf, something that was not existent before their ownership. They've added some first aid staff to the team who are available to service any members of the public if there are incidents. And they've worked really closely with the police. So I just sort of outlining that to give you a sense of their commitment to really improving the safety of Manly Wharf and to give you a sense of how they will, the approach they'll take to the operation of this premises. The second thing I wanted to say was really to acknowledge that there were some questions raised, I think, by the chair in relation to CPTED, crime prevention through design. We've responded to that. So I'm hoping that the panel have had an opportunity to see a further summary of all of the things that have been done through the physical design of this proposed venue, but also through a layering of operational and management approaches. And on that basis, I want to go through all of those things, but if you do have any further questions, happy to take them. And lastly, to thank the council for their assessment and the recommendation for approval with some conditions. I think the summary on the last page of the report says it well, that this proposal does perform well against the relevant controls. It won't cause unreasonable impacts on the neighbourhood or the natural environment. And that the police, who have looked at this very closely, conclude also that this is a good proposal. They're supportive with some conditions. So we're pleased to receive that recommendation, and we hope that the panel adopt that recommendation. If you have any questions, happy to take them.
Okay, thank you very much. Tim, panel members, do you have any questions at all?
Yes,
I'll take Marilyn first, please. Thank you. Marilyn, your microphone is turned off. Still off. Sorry. While Marilyn's sorting out her microphone, I might go to Ben if I could. Ben, would you like to speak?
Yeah, this is a question for the operators, so I'll put it through Tim, but you may not be able to answer this, Tim. With the capacity of 700, how often would you anticipate actually reaching that capacity? Yeah, I would imagine most of the time it's not operating at that level, but is there any idea of the patronage over time?
Thanks, Ben. We've obviously, conducted our assessment on the basis that it can perform well at that capacity. And I must say, I'm not sure what the expectation is there. I'm not sure that the operator is certain of how it will ebb and flow. The patronage will obviously go up and down around times of the day and different live performance that may be scheduled. But Ash, if you are there, would you like to add anything to that?
Hi, panel. We're the applicant, and just we're happy to make some comment in terms of how we see it potentially operating.
So I guess we see the space operating. People coming to have something to eat and drink, but different days and nights of the week will be different sorts of things. So we see there being, for example, a trivia night midweek where we get decent numbers of people, and that could range anywhere from 300, 400, where people come and have something nice to eat, glass of wine and a nice dinner, but play trivia. On other times there'll be we see family day on Sundays where kids eat free for lunch. We do a similar thing in another one of our venues that's worked really well. So I think to another night there might be jazz on. So there's different styles of things that will be on in different nights. We do some art house, might be art house movies and different movies on with other nights. So I think it's a cross range of customers wanting to really provide something for the community in all different walks of life, and people to come and have something nice to eat and drink. So it's cross-sectional.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bill, no, I'll go to Marilyn. You've got your microphone's working now, so off you go.
Thank you very much. Can I ask, how are you going to deal with this, what almost seems to be a crime wave of public urination that has been complained about by the people who live in the area?
Yeah, so my name, by the way, is Adam Tlaskis, one of the owners of Manly Wharf and Artemis Group. Yeah, so we really spent a lot of time talking. Basically, we're here every day, every night, working with the business, the precinct of the Wharf, and all of the community. And we spent a good, 8 months talking to hundreds and like thousands of people basically on a daily basis and asking different things. And that's where we came up with the idea. You might be aware of the current toilets downstairs in the car park, which is quite unsavory, just, being transparent and upfront and honest. Fairly unsafe is the feeling to go to the toilets downstairs. And it was one of the most talked about things. And that's why we thought, let's sacrifice some of the retail space on the ground level with all the customers travelling to and fro on the ferries. Let's sacrifice some retail space and some rental income, invest a few $1 million and build some beautiful precinct toilets rather than going down into the car park. So we've listened, we've done surveys, and as part of this proposal, we see this being a major improvement of the experience of everyone that's within the Wharf precinct as well as travellers. And if you're on either beach, you might even come in and use the precinct toilet. So we think that that's going to make a big difference. And if you are kind of close and aware to how the Manly Wharf Hotel used to operate, when we first purchased the Wharf, they used to move the tables out, and it was seriously loud and a very different venue to what it is now. From the day that we've purchased the Wharf, the same day we've spent $330,000 on security cameras throughout the Wharf. That includes facial recognition cameras. We also paid for additional cameras on the roofs that go down either beach, of which we've given direct link and feed to the police, so they can see live everything that's happening. We put on the 24-hour security 7 days and nights a week. We have full-time cleaners 24 hours a day, and we've changed what the Wharf Hotel was. If you come and just feel the vibe and the energy of what it is now, it's a place now where it suits families, so kids to grandparents, a safe environment where you want to come and have a nice meal, something nice to eat with 1 or 2 drinks, not what it was 7 months ago, which was total opposite to that. So I think we wanted to show the community, what we see for the whole Wharf and what's worked for us with our business model in other locations, which is providing a place for lunch and dinner, a safe, family-friendly environment. And I think us sacrificing some of our rental income on the ground floor retail space to put in brand new and invest a few $1 million on some new precinct toilets, and for mums to be able to take kids in to change babies' nappies as well as bathrooms. We think that's going to be a real big benefit for the community and the travellers within the precinct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Phil.
Yeah, I mean, on the same issue, how do you propose that you're going to respond to the security needs over a particular peak evening? So, how many security people would you actually employ at, say, 2 or 3 in the morning compared to, say, 3 in the afternoon? How have you approached that particular decision, the manning of your security operation?
So
go, Adam. You're right. Sorry.
We have a security contract company that we've worked with for 7 years now on another precinct. The other precinct has sort of 20 odd million people come through it per year, and so we exactly this type of asset is what we specialise in. How to operate a precinct-wide venue, family friendly with security, etc. And so we've spent years working with the company that are working with us here. And obviously, when there's more people at the precinct, we have more guards. They also now have. When we first came, there was one room with literally 2 cameras up. There was a screen with 2 cameras. I don't know how they actually operated this whole Wharf. Now they've got the TV screens with the cameras everywhere. We're actually going to continue to invest more money in the cameras throughout the rest of the precinct. So we'll be for every year further investing. And depending on the numbers of people is how we program the numbers of security. But we have security that roam the entire precinct, out on the front forecourt, down on where the wharfs are and the terminals are, and also roaming around the communal space amongst the precinct, plus in the venues. So it's directly kind of related to the busy times. But yeah, we have a very good record of operating this sort of safe, family-friendly environment with security, where we never have any issues with the other precinct we've operated. It's
and it involved
just hold on a moment. There's somebody who's going by the name of Cargo that's got their microphone on. Could they turn it off? They're gone. Okay, proceed. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
Can I just add one thing in relation to the security staffing rates? There's a requirement in the recommendation or the advice from the New South Wales Police that security personnel are staffed at a particular rate relative to the number of patrons at the premises. So it's 1 per 100. So just in terms of the specific number of security staff, that's how that would be determined.
And you'll be conforming to that requirement, will you?
Yes, we will be. Yeah.
In fact, that would end up written in as a condition of the consent.
24/7. So at 4 in the morning, you're going to have somebody, at least one person, monitoring what's happening, and maybe more depending on the number of people. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes, that's correct, Phil.
Phil, just as an example, on Australia Day, we worked with, just for this group, we worked with police to plan Australia Day out, given what happened last year. We had 9 security guards across our entire precinct, 2 managers, 7 cleaners, and police had 2 roving groups that they walked around this precinct the whole time. So, and we had a really safe Australia Day, all the 2 public holidays. So that gives you an insight just to the level of how we work and what we upscale when our precinct upscales as well.
Yeah, it is a good example. Obviously, there were issues here last year, Australia Day, prior to us purchasing the wharf. And of all the way it was operated here and the management plan and photos and videos of that whole day experience was the total opposite to how it was the year before. I was super proud of the whole team and the police. We've had multiple meetings over the last 2 weeks, even with Transport, New South Wales Transport, Police, our own security. And basically, if all of the people of Sydney and the locals know that they can come with their families to Manly Wharf and feel safe, that means that the wharf will be a success, and the restaurants and cafes and venues in the wharf will have successful business with people getting a good experience. So it's absolutely in our interest that people come to the precinct, the shoulders drop, they feel safe, they see the presence of our security. We have them wearing blue shirts, so a feeling of calmness. And the way that we have worked with our security is that, we want people to feel welcome, like you're bringing them into your house. So that's the way they interact with people. It's not aggressive, it's calming, welcoming, but a presence of them so that you feel safe.
Sounds good. One last question. How do you respond, or do you log and report on resident complaints? How does that work? Presumably, a lot of the resident complaints would go to the police or council, but there would be a lot, I would imagine, would come to you. Are you planning to log that and analyse it and share it in any way?
Yeah, I believe it's a condition in the management of this specific space. But just so that you know, there are residents that come down and literally come and speak to myself and our team. And there's a whole series of things that, us working closely with our neighbours is really important. And a harmonious sort of experience for our neighbours and ourselves is what's important. There's a series of things, for example, I've heard in other parts of the wharf there might be some machinery that makes a noise that a resident's come and spoken to me about, for example. And down the track, we're working on sort of long-term, plans with the wharf over the long term of integrating a whole series of environmentally sustainable practices. We do the same thing and have won sort of, multiple awards year on year for doing that at another precinct. We intend to do the same thing here. We know that the local community is passionate about this. And when we do those sorts of things, that we'll be able to further address a whole series of things that have been logged and collated of neighbours. There's certain systems, whether it's air conditioning or different things these days that are quieter, use less power. We will be able to then enclose in certain spaces that are currently just outdoors. So we genuinely have a long-term, passionate commitment to want to improve pretty much everything within the Manly Wharf. We look forward to sort of working with yourselves and the locals in years to come, in the next few years, about this precinct lasting for another 100 years. It's very old. There's a series of maintenance things that we deal with on a weekly, monthly basis, and wherever there's opportunity to further improve those things, we're looking forward to addressing it. Yeah.
Can I just add, Phil, one thing to Adam, what Adam said is there's a whole section in the plan of management that is called up in any development consent that deals specifically with complaints handling. It requires email and phone numbers to be available, a register to be kept, the nature of the complaint to be recorded, follow-up actions, and so on.
Great, thank you.
Can I just ask a couple of other questions? Just in terms of how does the liaison on an ongoing basis, particularly in the evenings, I guess, work between your staff and the Transport Police, given that I've assumed that the ferry terminal and around there really has a lot of involvement from them, given the volume of commuters and the like using the ferry?
Yeah, good question, David. Well, we've been having constant, emails daily and face-to-face meetings with the whole series of their team. And we're actually working together now on a whole series of things of where there's certain sections of the wharf for people getting on and off ferries that we could keep safe with our security team and also our cleaning team, cleaning rubbish. The Australia Day that was on, we didn't have all of the kids jumping off the Wharf 3 that was there, which can be dangerous. So we've had a series of meetings where we're working closely with them, and they've sort of said if we're happy to, they're appreciative and welcoming of us to start to sort of do some of that looking after of those spaces.
So how does it work real time of an evening?
So I can jump in here if you want, Adam. So David, Wharf 3 is a great example. We are constantly calling the police. So Wharf 3 has a lot of issues with kids jumping it off at the moment. It's not our wharf, it's attached to and entered via our wharf. So just a good example. Police increased their presence in there over the last school holidays due to our request. So we now have 2 walks a day have to come through by police because we've identified it as a high risk area. So that's the first part, is identifying and talking. If we have incidents, our first point of call is directly to the Manly Police Office. And then myself and the head of security have the phone numbers for the head of licensing and the command sergeant. And then if we don't get any escalation, we call them direct. Just as an example, last Tuesday, we couldn't get police due to resource. We called the command sergeant. And about Wharf 3, he has a direct camera in his office. And we said, hey, there's 100 kids on this wharf causing havoc. He looked over at his camera and then said, oh, yeah. And then we had a patrol there within 5 minutes. So one, we've got a line of communication, but we also they have direct access to our cameras. If anything does escalate, they can look at them straight away.
I must admit, it's been really to deal with.
Yeah. Is Wharf 3 the one that you walk through your outdoor, I call them dining areas, that's off to probably the east of the main wharves, where all the kids were jumping off on Sunday?
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
That's one spot. That's the example. We have the
Yes.
forecourt is obviously the the popular destination, and we have a request probably once a day at the moment for camera footage from us of incidents that happen out on East Esplanade. So we're in constant communication with police.
Okay. And the new the proposed relocated toilets, what hours will they be open? Do you know?
They'll stick to the current plan. The current plan, they open when the ferry terminal opens, and they close when the ferry terminal closes.
When's that? Sorry, I'm not familiar with that.
That's 6 a.m. until the last ferry's at 12:30.
Okay. And you shut a weekend at 1.
Correct. Yeah. So our shutters go down when the last ferry has left.
Yep.
And most of our retail, our venues shut at 1 o'clock, but obviously the venues have internal toilets.
Yeah. No, I'm thinking of the urination issue that was raised by the gentleman earlier, and thinking, okay, what's the story here with public toilets?
So David, sorry, just to build, the reason we close it now is because they are in the car park, and we get a lot of vandalism.
Yeah, I understand, but I'm referring to the relocated ones, the proposed relocated ones.
I mean, just talking to that, David.
Yes.
Yeah, I think those times should align. That sounds like something like that. If there's a venue open till later, well, those times should align with the toilets. I think that sounds appropriate.
Yeah, well, there's clearly a bit of an issue in the area, and I think you've always got people who'll do weird things, but the more we can provide an outlet, which is probably an unusual choice of words there, for them, the better.
We have the ability, by relocating them, David, to your point, to open them longer as the patrons have left, because we have the security and the cleaners on site as well. So there is the flexibility, to your point, to stay open to help alleviate that issue.
And so you will control those relocated toilets?
Yes.
It's all our property, yes.
Okay.
So
thanks for that.
We'll be managing them and cleaning them and all that sort of thing. But something like that sounds common sense to me, David. I think things like those things should align.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because okay. No, thank you for that. And look, just a comment that relates to my queries earlier. I've now got a copy of the police referral. I'm not quite sure who's that's been made available for, because they've asked it to be confidential to the organisation it's gone to, which is actually council. But it's answered a lot of my queries I had as far as SEPTEB's concerned. But I guess my comment, I'll just leave this as a comment, remains that from my experience, a SEPTEB report, standalone SEPTEB report, should accompany DAs like this. And the police referral has actually filled a lot of the gaps that I would have expected a SEPTEB report to have. And I say that as someone who's done the SEPTED course, who's done a number of SEPTEDs in the past, and I'm also a qualified licensee. So, I'm looking at it from all those perspectives. So, just a note for future reference, that, the documentation should have, I think, been a bit more comprehensive than what it has been in that case. And I'll stick with my comment, what was submitted, I believe, was a little bit light on as far as that's concerned. But fortunately, the police report's been more comprehensive than I've normally seen from them. So it's filled a lot of those gaps. Okay, so any other comments from people? No, Ben? No? Mary? No? Okay, can I thank everybody for your participation? As I mentioned earlier, we'll go into closed session later on this afternoon, and the outcomes of our determination during that session will be made available from council a few days from now. So once again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
David.
And I would now like to move on to the next item, if I could, panel, which is item 4.3, DA 2024-1117, which is 54 Wangala Street, Balgala. And we've got a few people who've, just bear with me a second, who have registered for that one, and it relates to an increase in student numbers at St Celia's primary school. So the people I've got registered to speak are Colette Baudry and Karen Buckingham. Is that all you have on your list, Natalie?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Colette, are you online at the moment?
Yes, I am. And I am here with my husband and co-owner of my home, Adam Geiger, as well.
Okay, thank you very much. So I don't know whether you heard my introduction earlier, did you?
Yes, I did.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, well, you're all in your hands. So if you wouldn't mind making your presentation, that'd be great. Thank you.
Well, I don't actually have a presentation per se. But I did want to have the right to speak if necessary, and I wanted to hear from Karen Buckingham, who is a professional. If you don't mind to refer to Karen first, please.
Certainly. Okay, so we'll hold you in abeyance. Karen, I can see you're online, so go ahead, please.
Good afternoon. Can the panel hear me? Just to
yes,
confirm?
we can. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of my client, Anne Carolyn Lawson of 50 Wanganella Street. My client's property is located immediately to the south of the site, abutting the area currently used as a play area and classrooms. This is the location of the former parish house. I have significant concerns that the assessment report has accepted a proposal that lacks accurate technical reporting and results in regularising an unreasonable impact on my client's amenity. It is requested that the panel members refer to the acoustic report prepared by Day Design on Figure 1 on page 7, which includes the location of testing sites. As can be seen from this diagram, which is also an attachment to the panel submission, and as highlighted in the objection letter and submission to the panel, the acoustic report has failed to carry out any testing from my client's property. Acoustic testing should have been carried out from her property and fully assessed by Council's environmental health team before any assessment or determination of the DA. Council's environmental health team did consider the exceedances identified at locations R1 and R2, which are 65 and 62 Seaview Street, among other 4 other sites. There was 4 in total. But these 2 properties were noted to exceed the noise allowances identified. However, the environmental health team determined that because they were the other side of the road, there was additional noise sources. My client's property is at the boundary of the site where no other noise sources are present. Exceedances at my client's property couldn't be identified at all as they were never recorded. Independent report prepared by Pulse Acoustic Consultancy on my client's instruction recorded 65 to 70 decibels over a monitoring period, which is much greater than that measured even at location R1 and R2 in the submitted acoustic report, and 5 to 10 decibels over the stated noise criteria specified on Table 8, page 15 of the submitted report. The assessment of this DA should not have been considered without accurate technical data and an informed response from the environmental health team. The responsible officer and environmental health team did not have all the relevant information to make a recommendation. And by virtue of this, it cannot be determined that the proposal meets Principle 5 of the SEP or Clause 3.4 of the Manly DCP. And in light of this, it's requested that the panel refuse the DA or defer determination until a revised acoustic report is submitted and fully assessed, detailing acoustic testing from my client's property at term time, during class and playtime, and importantly, recording the number of children present. The objection letter dated the 10th of September 2024 and submission to the panel provide greater detail and clarification on a number of additional matters which haven't been addressed in the assessment report. Given that you have these submissions, I won't be repeating those queries due to our time limitations, but I do request that my client receives a detailed response. And in terms of my presentation to you, I've highlighted the key consideration and concern being the lack of technical reporting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Colette, do you have anything you want to add at this stage?
Thank you, I will, and it was nice to hear from Karen and her very professional report. My concerns reflect a lot of people on Seaview Street, which is the street next door, and the school is between Wagonella and Seaview Street. And there's two or three issues. I suppose the big thing is that should the community get the chance to comment on the 20% increase in student numbers that has been operating outside the rules for some time now, and with the growth of so many things in Sydney and on the northern beaches, you know, I don't think just adding some extra kiss and drop spaces on Seaview Street is going to help some of the larger issues. There's a noise issue, which I'd like to talk about, but also the traffic issue and the idea that the school was already operating outside the number of students it was allowed, that there's been sort of no consequence for that, and that it wants to grow more. What kind of issues must it be asked to have enforced to keep noise levels and traffic levels from expanding further? Because there are a lot of problems. And as someone who lives much further away than Ann Lawson, Karen's client, the noise levels are quite noticeable for anyone who works from home from early in the morning. Where that noise is coming from is so close up against Ann's house, and from early in the morning, it's noticeable many houses away, and traffic is an issue. You saw how many people put in about the traffic on Seaview Street. I think there were about 8 or so DA objections put in from Seaview Street. So I was participating partially on the side of Seaview Street. We have children. We have had our children go through the school system. We are sympathetic to parents who are working and need to drop children. It would be great if more children could walk there, or even be parking further away so parents don't have to just all queue up and block driveways up and down the street twice a day. I think the general complaint is that the school had already broken rules and was operating at a larger number, and now wants a larger number again, and nothing really has been done to sort of meet the infrastructure needs of where it's at or where it wants to go. And so it is this concern about this proposal, that there be consequences for what they've done to break the rules they had before they go ahead and expand further. By adding a few more kiss and drop sort of parking spaces, I don't think is handling the parents' behavior, the traffic congestion, the noise of the students, and certainly the noise issues that I know that Ann Lawson has been putting up with, because it's difficult for me, who is many, many houses further away from the school, as opposed to being right up against it. So if that's all right, those are the concerns I have per an application that my husband and I put in that is very similar to several shared by other members of Seaview Street.
Thank you. Karen, can I just clarify something? Your client's property is the one that's immediately to the south of the car park and the playground area, is that correct?
That's correct. So in the attachment
Street, yes.
Panel letter, yeah, that clearly shows it's figure 1, where she immediately abuts the site. And it doesn't clearly show on that aerial, but you hopefully saw on your site visit, and it's also in the objection letter, there's a photo, just trying to find the exact location of the photo of the play area immediately abutting.
Yeah,
so
I did see the play area when I was doing the inspection.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, no,
and if I could add, that play area is right up against that woman's house, Anne's house, and it's quite astonishing, actually. But yes.
Yeah. Okay. No, thank you for that. Any other? So I'll just move on now, if I could, to the applicant. I've got 2 representatives of the applicants here. There's William Fleming from BFF Planners, and also Zane Rolt. Are you both present? Now, who wants to be ringleader to coordinate the response, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. William Fleming here. I'll kick it off.
Okay, thanks, William.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've read through the assessment report and I'm here with Zane to support the recommendation of approval. We acknowledge that the community has raised concerns with regards to impacts to the local traffic and parking network. We provided a traffic report, which was subsequently updated during the assessment with requests for additional information coming from Council's traffic engineer. And with that updated report and further information, that was ultimately endorsed by Council's traffic engineers. The school has been and will continue to monitor drop-off and pick-up times to minimise impacts to the traffic network. We provided an acoustic report, which was supported by Council's environmental health team, and came to the conclusion that only a 1 decibel increase in noise was going to occur with the increase in student numbers. So with that being said, we're here to answer any questions that the panel may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Panel members, we're now open to any queries, questions you might have of the objectors or the applicants, please. Mary Lynn.
Yes, I've
you're
got
right.
a question of the applicant. Now that we've heard a resident complaining that no noise testing was done at their property, what do you suggest should be done in those circumstances?
Well, we've provided an assessment, an acoustic report that was conducted on the main playground area. I'm not going to pretend I'm an acoustic engineer, but the area that they're talking about is not the main playground area. And, you know, with an increase of 40 students, no 40 students is going to be congregating, an extra 40 students is going to be congregating in that area. So I think I'm a layman in this area, but I think the increase in noise would be fairly negligible.
So can I ask a question? So the playground area that's adjacent to the house in Wangarella Street, when is that used and by whom?
I'm not too sure. Yeah, Zane. Yeah.
Chair, that is basically, it's a spillover from our kindy area. So it would be used as a withdrawal or breakout room. So it could be in between lessons, but it would not be used during recess or lunch times. That is purely just activity areas used now and again. So it may be early in the morning when the kids are getting ready to go in class while the teacher's setting up. They may stand outside for a few seconds and then come back in and where they perform their normal class.
Okay, and the building adjacent, is that the kindergarten area?
It has 2 kindy rooms in it, yes.
Okay, no, thank you. Thank you very much. Any other questions from panel members? No.
Yep.
No. Phil, yes.
I was just curious to know whether you had considered any sort of acoustic fencing barrier to ameliorate your neighbours.
It wasn't something that was recommended by acoustic engineers as required, and not something that was supported by Council's engineers as being something required or conditioned. In my opinion, I don't think acoustic barriers would achieve a high level of acoustic amelioration, but if that's something we need to consider, we could.
Can I ask you why you don't think they would have an impact?
I think just with when I've spoken to acoustic engineers, they only ameliorate to some degree. Children's noise can be quite piercing at times, but it potentially could achieve some amelioration, but it's not going to be not going to solve all the acoustic issues. just the fact that they're living next door to a school and noise generated from a school.
No, but isn't acoustic fencing going to reduce the amount of noise that's going over the fence to neighbouring properties?
Yeah, potentially. It was not something we proposed, and it's not something that has been conditioned by council. But if that's something that the panel considers appropriate, then we will have to consider that. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not something you sort of looked at in your investigations at all.
Not something we looked at, and not something that was recommended by the acoustic engineers we engaged, and not something that was raised by council's environmental health referral either.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from panel members? None? So, Colette, can I just ask, you're aware that this is not an opportunity for to and fro between yourselves and the applicant, but if you've got a question you'd like to ask me, depending on the question, I might relay that and ask for a response.
Thank you. If you could just ask one last question, particularly to Will Fleming, who mentioned about the fact that the school has and will continue to monitor and minimize traffic. I have never seen any evidence of that. And I think my question for him is, he like to have his driveway blocked off twice a day for all the parents that are literally queuing all the way up and down the street so that it's very thick and people cannot get through. We have multiple people on the street who have videoed and photographed that. And
so your question is what they're doing about
monitoring.
Okay.
And just the last thing is that the idea of acoustics for the people immediately there, I certainly think would make a difference.
Well, that's a comment. I'll just take the question. Thanks very much. So if I could ask that question, I do note that in the assessment report, they refer to some traffic management initiatives that are going to be taken during pickup and drop down times. Are you able to just provide a bit of detail of that so that we all understand it, please?
Yeah, we provided with the application just some policy that the school has around drop off and pick up. There's always someone there monitoring drop off and pick up. They have the children not put their bags in boots, for example. They just go directly into the cars and away they go. The staff on duty will try and minimize the parking to 2 minutes as a maximum. And you know, that's what I understand the policy is at the moment. So they're doing everything in their power just to make sure that cars aren't staying there for greater than 2 minutes at drop off.
So I got the impression from the report that they were going to upgrade the traffic management processes in some way beyond what happens at the moment. Am I correct or incorrect on that score?
The traffic report did say to develop I guess, more a comprehensive traffic management plan.
Yes.
But that's not something we have developed with this application. But I did, that was something that was in the traffic report. And the traffic report will be,
so when would you be planning to do that?
Well, there's no conditions around that, but we can talk to the school about developing that plan and distributing it to the school and surrounding neighbours.
Okay, so you're saying you have got any plans at the moment. You're not aware that the school has.
Chair, can I interject?
Yes,
sorry. We have a number of sort of green travel plans that we're initiating at the school. It is a slow process. We can't be in control of parents all the time. What we've noticed is they are appearing to arrive earlier than what we would like, leading to the queuing of the traffic. So we issue comms via Connect, which is our online portal for parents, to try reinforce, you can only allow, it seems like there's a 15-minute period where it really does back up. So we are educating parents in that. It may take a few weeks, especially with the new start of term, but that is our goal. We are also encouraging kids to ride their bikes to school, for parents to walk them to school. Those are all things that we have put into place on the back of the plan that Will has in front of him, but it does take time to re-educate certain people. That's all I can say to the panel.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Panel members, any other questions, comments at all at this stage? Okay, that being the case, can I thank you all for presenting and for answering questions. So I'll now close off on item 4.3 of our agenda and move on to the next item. The next item being DA 2024/0458, which is Stewart Street, Manly. And from memory, that's a proposal for a car stacker. Before I bring up the file, I have a number of people who are registered as objective. David Wolski, Hannah Buck, and Robert and Michelle Manson. Are they the only ones that you have, Natalie?
Yes, I can confirm.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So I don't know whether or not you all had an opportunity to hear my introduction earlier on in the meeting.
I did.
Yeah.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Okay, terrific. Okay, well, we'll start now. David Wolski, you're the first person on my list to present. So in your hands, please.
My name's David Wolski. I'm a registered architect and have been asked by the neighbours at 51 Stewart Street and 10 Marshall Street to have a look at this proposal. I'm in looking at this proposal, it to me lacks detail and information regarding the neighbouring properties' levels, retaining walls and associated structures inside their property, given that the stacker is proposed to be 300 millimetres from 51 Stewart Street and 650 millimetres set back to 10 Marshall Street. I'm in looking at the survey and going out to site and having a look at the existing situations, especially in 51 Stewart Street. There seems to be a lack of information regarding an additional retaining wall that appears to be hard to the boundary against 53 Stewart Street up where the stacker needs to be, as well as it turning down against 10 Marshall Street. This particular wall would make the installation of a stacker wall, the attendant formwork, the temporary shoring, then holding up the neighbour's retaining wall, very problematic. I just don't know how you do it. And I would encourage the council to get some sort of construction management plan to show how this is going to occur, because I can see potential issues here that could lead to litigation. Then there is no stormwater drawings. There is some notes on the plans that talk about dewatering, etc., etc. The stacker is down 2.2 metres below the existing ground at RL 10.1. Our neighbours, at 10.7. Our neighbour's courtyard is at 10.1. I just don't know how they're going to get the dewatering into this 300 gap during the construction phase, and how they're going to maintain the wall during the construction and subsequent dewatering later on. The property at 10 Marshall Street is upstream of the stacker. The water's going to percolate down the top of the stone, about 1 metre down from the ground. It's then going to either go through or round the stacker pit, and it's going to end up in this little corridor that's 300 millimetres wide against the neighbour. I think that that's a recipe for leakage into the neighbour's property. It just seems very, very untenable as a construction. Certainly in the geotech report, the report says careful control of works required during the installation of any required retention systems, excavations, and constructions of proposed structures to maintain the stability of the block and adjacent land. Well, I just don't see any information in the package that gives you any indication of how that's going to work. If you look at the drawings on sheet number 9, there are 2 sections. On one of those,
David, can I mention you're already up to the 3 minutes, but I'm giving you a bit more time because I know you're representing 2 other people who probably will speak to less than the maximum. So keep going, but if you can keep it as concise as possible, that would be great. Thank you.
This lack of information and well, it just doesn't seem to add up to what I saw out on site. The cross section, the ground does not just come straight out like is shown on that drawing. It is in fact at best down at RL 11.6, and there's somewhere between 700 and 1 metre's worth of retaining at the top of the cross section. I certainly don't think the not 300 millimetres is enough. I think it's got to be at least the 0.9 as required in the DCP to be able to get any sort of constructability down that particular passage. And there is no stormwater detail. I think there's a whole pile of information missing in this particular application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, David. So I notice that you're representing both Hannah Buck and also the Mansons, but they have highlighted us that they may wish to speak after that. Is that the case?
I think so. I
can see Hannah's nodding vigorously. So Hannah, I might take you first if I could, please. You need to turn your microphone off. Wouldn't mind.
Can you hear me?
I can, even though it's showing your microphone is still off. But yeah, we can hear you.
Excellent, thank you. Thanks for your time today. My name is Hannah Buck. As you know, my husband Guy Flint and I are the owners of 10 Marshall Street on the northeast boundary of the proposed development. We are in opposition of the DA for the proposed car stacker and associated works. As neighbours, one of our primary concerns, which has inadequately been addressed thus far, is safety. There is no fire engineering provided, detailing things such as smoke detection systems, automatic fire sprinkler systems. Obviously, when vehicles are located in close proximity, in this case, vertically stacked, and with no natural ventilation in this pit, there is a high potential for rapid fire spread. There needs to be measures in place to ensure access for extinguishment and intervention to limit significant structural impact on both the site and the neighbouring properties should a fire break out. How is adequate engineering, fire engineering, going to be achieved when the setbacks, as David has already explained, already don't comply? Also, special measures need to be made for electric vehicles as they pose prolonged fire and explosion risks. I understand you've been to the site yourselves, but our bedrooms are positioned just metres away, so this is of great concern for us. When it comes to the stacker mechanism itself, there are no safety features. Does it have sensors, alarms to warn when it's in use, and fail-safe to prevent accidents? And at what audio frequency will these operate in this open space in our quiet community? While we've seen an acoustic report from the client, how can it be accurate when it doesn't take into account any of the noises associated with these safety mechanisms? Also, the council's DA report has not addressed that the car stacker will be used as visitor parking. Again, a safety concern. They said that the car stacker parking needs to be allocated to the same dwelling in order to comply with the DCP. Yet in the same sentence in the DCP, it also says it must not be used for visitor parking. The entire property is currently used 100% of the time for short-term lets. So how is this not classed as visitor parking when there's turnover every couple of days and there's no getting around the fact that there will be inexperienced users operating the stacker, often families too with young children in this confined space? Who is liable when something goes wrong? So in summary, we pose a question to you: what will this car stacker actually achieve at this site? The driveway currently informally fits 2 cars parked in tandem, and it will still only fit 2 cars at the end of this. With a safety gate required, there's no scope for even a 3rd car to be parked in tandem on street level. So it appears to us that in allowing this excavation and works for the car stacker to take place safely, it presents more issues than actual outcomes for everyone affected. And as concerned neighbours, we ask you to reject the development application. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. So I've also got Robert and Michelle Manson. Do you wish to say something as well?
Yes, please. I'd like to say something, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
so as
go
already,
ahead.
Thank you. As already raised by Dave Wolski, we don't understand how the hole for the car stacker will be dug without the wall in our rear garden falling in. As can be seen from the diagram on the screen and as outlined by David Wolski, it's very, very close to our garden. No one from council or from the applicant has been to our property to assess how critical this proposal is to us. Because it's being proposed so close to our boundary, there's real danger of our garden wall collapsing once work starts. In the geotech report, they state that only a hand-operated jackhammer must be used when the distance is 1.5 to 2.5 from adjoining structures. As adjoining structures are significantly less than this, we would request that council stipulate that only handheld operated jackhammers be allowed if the work were to proceed. Again, as raised by David, of particular concern to us is the water collection and distribution. Currently, ground and surface water flows under the building at 53 Stewart Street. If the subfloor is sealed off as proposed with waterproofing and a concrete slab, there are no indications as to where the water flow will be directed. We request that hydraulic engineering drawings showing detailed plans of how water is collected and distributed off-site be requested prior to any DA approval. Finally, we respectfully request that council inspect and review and then confirm that the existing structure is in fact all approved works before further works are approved. In particular, in the survey plan, there are fire stairs shown, but in the drawings submitted by the applicant, those fire stairs have been removed and are now referred to as storage. Please can the removal of the fire stairs be reviewed? I believe this is a Class 2 building and as such requires 2 fire exits. There's only 1 at present. Finally, I see that in the deemed approval that a pre-construction dilapidation report be prepared. We very much like that, and also a post-construction dilapidation report be prepared. And any remedial works required in that report we'd like to be completed before a certificate of occupancy is issued. Thanks for your time today, and if you need any further information, Lauren and Natalie have my details. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. I have, on behalf of the applicant, Greg Boston, who I can see is online, there to respond to any of the matters raised by the objectors, and then I'll pass on to the panel. So, Greg?
Great. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Greg Boston, consultant planner, speaking in favour of the recommendation. The application is reasonably simple. It proposes a car stacker in the location of an existing hard stand area. That hard stand area, or that boundary length, is only 10 metres, preventing the provision of 2 tandem compliant car parking spaces. So the application seeks to remedy that and reduce the demand for on-street parking through the provision of the car stacker. In relation to some of the issues raised by the neighbours and their representatives, there's a number of conditions that have been imposed in the consent. They go towards condition 11, requiring that all works are to occur on the subject property, and there are no works occurring on adjoining properties. The architectural plans submitted clearly nominate that all works are nominated on the subject site and can occur on the subject site. And to that extent, that particular condition addresses that concern. There is also condition 10, which requires compliance with the recommendations in the geotechnical report. And that is also bolstered by the fact that there are conditions regarding pre and post dilapidation reporting on adjoining properties, ensuring that if there are any impacts occurring during construction, that they are able to be documented and remedied at the cost of the applicant. In relation to the application lacking details, there's certainly been an updated survey prepared through the assessment process. There's also condition 7 of the development consent imposed by council's engineers requiring stormwater plans prior to issue of construction certificate. And to that extent, we believe that those particular issues are appropriately dealt with. The car stacker will need to be installed in accordance with manufacturer's specifications, which also ensure compliance with the applicable Australian standards. The acoustic report submitted with the application details the requirement for an acoustic fence immediately adjacent to the car stackers. That fence has been nominated on the architectural plans as being located wholly within the subject property, and condition 14 of the draft consent requires that acoustic fence to be provided in accordance with the recommendations within the acoustic report. There's also conditions such as 35, which goes towards the hours of operation of the car stacker to ensure appropriate acoustic outcomes to surrounding properties. The report before you does recommend approval of the application. It's been again assessed by council's planners and engineers and council's environmental health team, and they concur with the fact that the proposal provides for betterment in terms of reducing demand for on-street parking, with conditions also ensuring that those 2 car spaces are allocated to one of the units within the existing apartment building. Other than that, here to answer any questions that the panel might have.
Okay, thank you very much. Panel members, do you have any queries at all? Questions?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just a matter of housekeeping. I do note condition 33, which is an acoustic condition. It's called up under the heading of pools and spas, I believe. Right. Obviously, there's no pool or spa proposed. Right. So my submission to the panel is that condition can be deleted on the basis that condition 14 already captures the requirement of the acoustic report.
Okay, I'll ask the council staff to provide advice on that. Thank you. So there's nothing from the panel members. I just had a question in terms of not the car stacker, but the other area underneath the building, so as to speak, the subfloor area, where there's some basically flooring being put in, but waterproofing, drainage, etc. What's the objective of doing that, and what's the floor to ceiling height underneath there, please?
Yeah, sure. Look, the intention of that area has, I'm assuming since the building was constructed, being used informally for storage. It's just a subfloor area. There are ongoing water penetration issues. So the intention was to utilise the fact that the proposal was going to excavate adjacent to that end wall to actually enhance the the waterproofing generally and drainage of that area. In terms of the floor to ceiling, I would defer to the plan, but look, it looks to be, in the vicinity of 2.4 metres. And even if it were a concern of the panel that area might in the future be used or adapted for use for anything other than non-habitable purposes, the fact that there are no windows at all in that area and most of the perimeter of that space is at ground level, no objection would be raised to the panel imposing a condition that subfloor area be only used for non-habitable purposes.
Okay, great, thank you. Nothing else, panel?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, both objectors and the applicants' representatives, for your input. As I've mentioned previously, the panel later on this afternoon will retire to consider the determination of all the matters considered today in closed session, and the outcome of that will be made public in a few days' time after then. So the remaining items of the panel matters that we dealt with in closed session because there's no objectors and the like that have asked for to give a presentation. So I now close the public meeting component of the planning panel meeting. I'd like the planning panel members, however, to stay online once everyone else is logged off.